Good evening and welcome to the April Recreation Commission meeting. Notice of recording. This meeting will be replayed via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via the Government Access Channel live video on demand archives on the Town of Barnstable website. I'll begin with a roll call. If you would just say your first name and indicate your presence. So I will start with Alyssa Chase,
Alyssa, present.
Tony or Anthony LaPola,
Tony, present.
Sharon Brown,
Sharon, present.
Tim Luce,
Tim Lou's present.
and Renee King present. I'd also like to welcome Jeffrey Mendez, who is our town council liaison. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes for our March meeting.
Approve.
I ask for a second.
Second.
Any discussion or any corrections, update? All in favor of approving our March minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I think that's a good record on our recording. All right, so we don't have any old business. Our guest is not here yet. Is that true? I don't see him. So what I will do is, yes.
Henry's here.
There he is.
Yeah,
Hello,
I'm here,
Henry.
sorry.
How you doing? I had to
how
open
are you?
up the screen. Welcome, welcome. So it is a pleasure to have you join the Recreation Commission. This is your first time with us, and we are really a friendly group, a very active group, and we are here to help. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then, anything that you think that we as a Recreation Commission can do to support you. So Henry, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for letting me step on here. So I'm in my 6th month here as the athletic director in Barnstable. I was hired in mid-October. Prior to that, I had been a math teacher at Falmouth High School for a year, and then I was the athletic director at Falmouth Academy, where I worked there for 10 years. Really excited. It's been a lot of fun to get to know people in the community. I live in Sandwich, so not too far away. But I moved to the Cape 12 years ago after I graduated from Union College. I grew up in Central New York, and so it was new to the Cape then, but I feel like a local now. I mean, honestly, anything that we can do to help the recreation department. I do think that these are they are separate in terms of like we're interscholastic, but I do think there's a lot of crossover, and I want us to find a way, whatever I can do, so that both programs can run smoothly together. I think the biggest issue that we're dealing with right now is we have as a school, I can tell you we don't have enough facilities for all the teams that we're running. So that is a challenge for us. But obviously anything that I can do on my end to help you all, effectively run the rec programs, because so many of our athletes grew up. I mean, I grew up in a small town where the rec programs were what everybody did to get ready for the high school programs or get ready for the middle school programs. Next year, I'm going to be in charge of the middle school athletics as well. So we won't be, it'll be a little bit more of a unified program. Right now, Jason Canetta, the principal of BIS, is running them. So I'll take over. But I think that we have a lot of interest in those programs in the middle school. However, we almost don't have enough spots, if that makes sense, right? I talked to some of the middle school basketball coaches, and there was 50 kids that went out for middle school basketball, and they cut it down to 15. I see whether that's going to happen next year or not. I see the middle school programs running a middle school A and a middle school B, and then having a rec program for kids that can't, that didn't make the cut, right? Because cuts are, it's a part of the job at times. It's kind of tough for our coaches to have to make those decisions, but I think with space and resources, I think making cuts, but I think having a robust um, recreation program that can feed into our high school and middle school programs is what we want. I don't know what you would need from me. Obviously, for basketball, you have a gym, but I think it's timing, right? Right now, the rec program does have a rec program after school for basketball. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know. With our middle school or scholastics, we'd obviously go after school, but I think any way that we can work with you to have these programs, not run separately, but run as part of the town, just kind of unified.
Excellent. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Henry, you mentioned that facilities, are a real issue for you. What are we doing sort of immediately to try to to answer that question? And maybe long-term, what else are we doing to try to deal with the facility issue?
So we're kind of finding creative ways and alternative solutions that so one issue that we're dealing with this year that we were able to kind of kick the can down the road for was teams like winter track and cheerleading were using our main cafeteria, the 8th grade through 10th grade cafeteria, high ceilings for cheerleaders. We were bringing mats in. Winter track was moving the tables and warming up. That's something we don't have next year. So I'm actually right before I got on, I was writing an email to a gym in Sandwich about renting for cheerleading. Winter track, I haven't really solved that, but we do have number of athletes running around our school. I mean, the solution is building facilities that can house this, because I don't want us to run this like a college program where we're finding ourselves having to cut sports without facilities or low numbers. I think COVID did a number on athletics as a whole, and we're seeing that in spring is, I think, probably one of the toughest ones, because most of the time when the rec department, and John and I have talked about this, but when the rec department has used our school facilities for programs, and then obviously when it rains, sports like tennis, softball, baseball can't be outside. Lacrosse, they'll go out as much as they can. And this is, I'm speaking just about rain. Obviously a thunderstorm or anything, apocalyptic, which it sounds like we're going to have on Wednesday. It sounds like it's going to be pretty rough with the wind and stuff. But we use like those, that's the toughest thing. And I think to answer your question, we're trying to figure it out, because between 1,800 students in the high school and then 700 students in the middle school, timing is tough, because especially with middle school, if we do want to run an A and a B team, when do they practice? How do we effectively run practices there? And our facilities do get significant wear and tear on them. Those have to be updated at some point. Whether those updates are completely rebuilding it, which I wish that we could do. I have a dream of, one of those big athletic complexes that you see in those brand new schools in Texas or California, but I don't think that that's realistic for us right now. So I think the solution is preparing parents for an abnormal schedule or a different schedule than what they're used to. If they know heading into the season that on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and the rec department knows on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we are running late, right? That our facilities are kind of closed off on these certain busy days. That is really the solution that we have for right now. But we just don't, we run freshman, JV, and varsity for a lot of our sports, which is great, but that takes up a lot of space.
Any other questions? I have one question, and that is, have we looked at the adult center, which has really interesting hours? Most of their activities are done during the early part of the day,
Okay.
and they kind of close down, around 4 o'clock. And there are two really nice large function rooms at the adult center. So have we thought of some ways to have synergy and maybe integrate intergenerational kind of activities just to make the sharing more attractive?
I haven't, but this is great. This is why this is a great meeting for me to sit on. I'm learning what facilities, the town has, and um, as I said before, like, we're willing to get creative if if we can, I'm still new, right? So I've been able to say, like, oh, I'm still learning, but at some point, that excuse is gonna go away. And I think for us, finding really anything, as long as we're preparing parents, right? When I was at the private school, we had very limited facilities. And the way that it used to be done was middle school would go until 3:30. And we got out of school at 2:15. So it was an hour practice. And then varsity and JV would practice at the same time. And no one ever went past 5 o'clock because there was 5 o'clock buses. But I was a varsity basketball coach there for 8 years. What I started doing, and I started, telling parents and telling families, hey, we're going to be late on these days, or these are the exact days. I think for us, having those conversations with parents, and I think, um, heading into next school year for sports like basketball or soccer. Soccer is tough because of dusk and everything like that. But with basketball, if there is a rec basketball program, if an athlete does want to do both, we want to give them that option. I don't want to see it as you do one or you do the other, because as in 6th and 7th grade, you can use as much practice as possible, right? And I think if we have those programs available to our students, we make sure that we tell the parents, and the communication is going out from the parents through my office, in conjunction with, the recreation department. I think that we want that parents won't be surprised, right? If that makes sense, right? They know that practices are starting at this time, and using our facilities, obviously, anytime that we aren't practicing, or games, and working around. We're not going to take, we want to work with the department, right? So if there's an event that's an all-day event, you need our facilities, and all we would have is practices, I would talk to our coaches and be like, listen, we got to get creative, right? We'll go to the field house this day in the morning, and you're going to go 2 hours early in practice. But again, it's communicating it early. And on another note, when I was at Falmouth Academy for 6 years, I ran sports camps. And they hadn't existed before I got there. So we started off pretty small, but by the time I was done, over the course of 7 weeks, we were having about 150 kids come each week. And it was 100 in the morning, then 50 different in the afternoon. We had 2 sessions. So one thing I would love to do is work with the recreation department with, eventually working towards a summer type what you already have, and building in what the athletics office can do to help with that, because it was a great tool for us as a private school for admissions, but it also, a lot of kids were learning sports that they hadn't played before. Our choices were tennis, soccer, and basketball. Those were the facilities that we had, right? But growing up in Ithaca, there was something called Cornell Sports School, where you would sign up for 3 or 4 sports throughout the week, and you'd be working with players and coaches from that sport. So I think having our varsity coaches or having our varsity players, work with you all, whether it's during the summer, it's a great summer job to be a camp counselor. But I think working with that, and creating this synergy between the athletics department and the recreation department, even with something in terms of the camps. And forgive me, I'm not super familiar with what the rec department does during the summer. But I know that there is, there's camps, but I think us working closely with you all is going to be very important for something like that.
Brendan, welcome. How are you? Glad you're with us. Brendan, do you have any questions also? Because I know you kind of grew up and you can talk to some of this firsthand from an athlete perspective. I do have another question, and this will be interesting for you, Sharon, as you move into the CPC role. And John, when we do our road trip in May, maybe I can make arrangements to actually visit this facility, which is on Main Street. So Sturgis Charter Public School, which is a public school, they invested in what used to be wings.
Mhm.
And if you go into that building right now, what you see is a large, formerly retail space that now is multifunctional. So it can be used for testing, it can be used for a theater. I'm not sure to what extent they're using it for athletic activities. But as we start to look at, we might not be able to invest in a state-of-the-art arena that we see some towns, but there's a lot of underutilized commercial real estate, pretty large real estate. I can think of two with Christmas Tree Shop and Bed and Bath and Beyond, that if we could think somewhat outside of the box of what a space for recreation looks like, the example of what they've done with the Wing store is quite interesting, and it's kind of central and it's accessible and it's multifunctional. So, John, let's put a little note there that if we can just, I have access into that building just to go in and see, because I was blown away with how much multi-purpose that facility is being used for. Any other questions?
Renee,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll let Tim, I couldn't get my microphone to go while Renee was talking to me. But right now, I don't have any questions. I thank you for the report. Right. Sorry, I was a little bit late, guys. I got off work a little bit late. But no, Tim, I'll cede the floor to you. You can take it.
No worries. Thank you. And welcome, Henry. We've actually met over the winter time when I won a couple raffles at a basketball game, which was kind of funny. But a couple of things. I actually own and operate Cape Cod Youth Sports, which is a private company, but we, I'm a Barnstable guy, born and raised here, graduated. I'm actually the president of the Hall of Fame right now. So I would definitely like to meet with you over a few different things. I got a lot going on. You probably got an email from me recently about girls flag football. I'm working with a friend of mine in conjunction with the Patriots and trying to get that going. But one area that I just have a question is again, being an old guy, born and raised here, being a Red Raider. I know we're Red Hawks now. Barnstable was always kind of the measuring stick on the Cape for sports. We had the premier programs. We really didn't play too many Cape teams because the size of the school and competition and that type of thing. I think the playing fields, no pun intended, but the playing field's a little more level now with the Cape League. So that's one area I would love to see Barnstable kind of get back to that. I think we have some awesome programs, obviously the volleyball program. I think Ross is doing a great job at the football program, and a few others doing great, but I would love to see that. But in terms of myself and Cape Cod Youth Sports, maybe there's a way, that we can incorporate, us with the school in getting more Barnstable kids to play for our program in terms of helping to facilitate that growth and that, like you were talking about before, there's not that many programs out there to really feed into the high school, because there's not. I think it's a great job with the middle school, getting those guys going, but Have you ever thought about that, like maybe working with a private company, just to kind of, maybe herd some kids over that way so that they're still playing together, so that but when they get to the high school, they're a little bit more, accustomed in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with your point. Like we have 1,800 kids in the high school, right? We have a large L population. So it's not, there's certain sports that, kids haven't been playing if they're new to the area for a while. But I'd love to introduce kids to new sports. But I think speaking on the Cape League, you're exactly right. There's no reason for us to, and I'm not expecting, a regular season championship every year, right? I want the teams to perform at the best of their ability. But we are playing in a time when majority of the Cape League schools, right? Nauset is the second biggest, and they maybe have 1,000 students. When I was at Falmouth, we started at 790. My school year started at 790, and they've been gutted pretty hard by Upper Cape Tech and Sturgis's. So they're at 720 now. And that number is not going up because, my wife has been a teacher in Falmouth for 10 years. Real estate's not getting any cheaper there. And so they're pricing out a lot of young families. So I do think, being pretty frank here, I think that at some point the Cape League isn't going to be the right league for us. I think the greatest example of that is boys basketball. Alik Taylor has worked really hard to build that program up. He's done an incredible job, and he works very well with the youth programs. He understands what it means to be a varsity coach in a town like Barnstable, right? When I was growing up, the varsity coach was at middle school practices, right? Because he was there, and it was just, you looked at high school athletes when you were in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you looked at them like they were gods. And you were sitting there going, I can't wait to play. I can't wait. And for me, it was being a Lansing Bobcat, right? I couldn't wait to be a Bobcat. And I think for us, because we're but back to my original point with Alik, he goes 14-5, has a great season, has his best season as a head coach here at Barnstable, and we were ranked 45th in the state. Say what you want about the power rankings, it's a flawed system overall, but they usually aren't that wrong, right? I felt like we were definitely we should have been hosting a playing game, not driving to Weymouth for it. So I've had early conversations with Bridgewater Raynham and Dartmouth, which was what we were in before, about potentially joining back up with them again, because we are so much bigger than every other school on the Cape. The Cape League, Cape and Islands League is great because it has pretty much every sport that we offer, right? So it's relatively competitive. But with Sandwich leaving, and when they originally sold this, when I was at Falmouth Academy, I was there for when it transitioned to the Cape and Islands League that it is today. They had this idea that it was going to be every school in the Cape. They were going to convince schools like Mashpee, Upper Cape Tech, Bourne, all to leave their leagues and come to us and have 3 divisions, 6, 7 teams in each division. It was going to be perfect. And that's why a lot of people bought in. But when, schools started saying no, or schools like Sandwich were leaving, that competitiveness kind of went away a little bit. There's certain sports where we're heading into a point where we're probably going to be ideally better than everybody in the league, right? Where we're going to be going undefeated or 1 or 2 losses in the league, because of our size and because of the talent pool that we have, and the fact that we're seeing freshman, JV, and varsity levels at a lot of our teams in sports that were decimated by COVID, right? And they're starting to build back a little bit, right? We've seen that this spring. We had 25 more spring athletes than we did last year. And each year, I've looked at the numbers, each year it's getting a little bit bigger, right? Ross, I'm projecting, partly because of how well the football team did, but I'm projecting us to probably be around 100 kids in that program next year, which we haven't been on 100 since before COVID. So I think that the competitiveness, and one of the competitiveness on the Cape is something that I'm looking pretty closely at, but also, as you said, making this school be a desirable program for students that want to be here. This is a very good high school. I've met teachers, the programs that they have, and everything that can be offered to a student to be a student athlete. It's really exciting to be here. I see new faces every day, but there's certain teachers that I see. Doesn't matter who it is, they know who they are. Right? The students don't feel like they're at a school of 1,800 kids. They feel appreciated and they feel cared for by the teachers, by the associate principals, by really the community mentors that we have. I think this is a really good program, and one of the things that we have going for us is that we do have 8th grade in here, right? So 8th to 9th grade is the biggest decision for students, right? They're choosing whether or not to go to Sturgis's, St. John Paul, the vocational schools, and we're always going to lose kids to those schools. But because we have students in the building, we want to give them, and those athletes that we have in the building, we want them to look at and say, I can't wait to be a varsity athlete here. I can't wait to be a Red Hawk, right? The way that you felt about being a Red Raider, right? You grow up in this town, you want to play for these teams. And we have a really good core group of coaches that are here that are selling that message. Coaches like Elite, Ross, Tom, like all these coaches are doing a great job selling their programs, and we're trying to find alternative ways for them to continue to be able to do that. And then my department here to support them. One thing that we're looking at doing is having it's a sponsorship, but it's not really a sponsorship, but having Under Armour do our uniforms so that all the teams look consistent. It doesn't matter if your team has a booster club that's very robust or a team who doesn't even have a booster club. You're all going to be in the same quality uniform and you feel as if you are the same. Equity is a very important issue for me, with every team having the same, ability to experience the resources that we have, that we are given. And I think for us, building on that and continuing to grow these programs, but in the short term, I think looking at, is this league the right league for us? Because if we're able to play schools from all across the state, right, and they have that opportunity because they aren't tied down to 10 league games, and they might win 6 of those by an average of 15 to 20 points, but that just hurts our power rank. It's the reality that we're in right now. So I think finding, again, alternative ways and getting our athletes love being involved with the youth programs. You see them work with these kids, you see them interact with these kids during the games, after the games. I even see them or hear about what they're doing with the kids in the rec programs or anything else. I think continuing to give these kids role models to look up to, that are guided within this program, within this athletic department. It might not be something we see in 1 year or 2 years, but it's something that we can see over the course of the next 10 or 15 years, is our program becoming the premier program on the Cape. Because school choice, and I'm learning this as well, school choice is kind of the wild, wild west out here. Everybody just kind of goes from school to school, right? And technically you're not supposed to make the decision based on athletics, right? We aren't recruiting. But if an athlete chooses to come here because of the opportunities that they have within this athletic program, along with the academic opportunities that they have, that's what our goal is. We want them to be able to choose here because of the whole program, because everything that they can accomplish here.
I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you talked about kids looking up to the athletes and the coaches. And I'm sure I think Jeff is still on here. Jeff Mindy's he's town council liaison. But I played hockey in the town of Barnstable my whole life as a kid, and Jeff played football. And when you were a kid growing up in Barnstable, like you wanted to play football for Pete Milchiono, who was hockey for Pete Milchiono, who was the hockey coach at the time. Or Mark Titus was the football coach, I believe, when Jeff was playing, more than you wanted to play for the Bruins and the Patriots. I mean, you wanted to play for Barnstable High School. And I think that is, that would be the ultimate goal, I think, is to get these kids back to that, back to that level of thinking, because I just think it would behoove, our athletic department as a whole.
When I was interviewing, I came in and I saw the game against Bridgewater Raynham. I told my wife, was after one of my interviews. I went to my wife. I said, I really feel a connection to this school. So I want to see what the football game is like. And they had the Silver Bullets players come out. And I was talking to Liz Friedman a little bit, and I said, just look at the excitement, right? Just standing on that field, right? You can't teach that. You can't buy that, right? That feeling, that sense, like they were out there and they were so excited about being able to be out on that field. You know, I want that to be universal for every single one of our programs.
Yeah, Bullets do a great job.
Thank you, Tim and Henry. Jeffrey, you
Henry?
have a question, and then I'll
Yeah.
go to Sharon.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. I know I'm not really supposed to participate in this stuff, but very nice to meet you. Jeff Mendes, Town Council Precinct 8 for Barnstable. And as Timmy said, kind of to build on what he said, the Cape and Islands League is a great concept, as you said, but when I played in SMC, then we played in Old Colony, where the roles were reversed, where we were kind of one of the smaller schools. So it's important for our rec and our youth programs to be symbiotic with our high school programs. The big disparity in talent, especially with the bigger schools, is their rec programs, their Pop Warner programs, their hockey programs are all feeder programs for their high school. So it's important that we get on the same page with our recreation, because it's not only going to, give our kids a better chance of winning, but it's also going to retain them if they're familiar with the system.
Mhm.
And hey, let's admit it. We, a few years back, we lost a lot of talent to DY because of their football program. And in order to have success, especially when we stop playing, the Catholics or, New Bedford or, Durfee, Bridgewater Raynham in football, is that it's important that our Pop Warner program actually runs the same offense as our high school, or our hockey program does the same. Because without that, they go to high school and have to learn something totally different. Now, when I played, we didn't have Pop Warner, but we had 7th and 8th grade football, which was a feeder program for the high school. But these other kids from off Cape, they stopped playing football at 7 years old.
Mhm.
They run back then, the wishbone was the big thing. So they're starting to run the wishbone. So when they're in high school, they're great at it. They know it like the back of their hand. So I think it's very important for the town as a whole to not only support our sports programs, but to support it in the way where it's more of a feeder program for the high school. And like I said, I'm thoroughly convinced with success, that will lead to retention. And I don't think, as far as athletics go, we'll have a problem of losing to other programs on the Cape.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's been a focus of, so we've hired two new varsity coaches since I came in, and obviously we have a few more that we're looking at, but both candidates who accepted the positions had either a connection to a local club team. So our girls lacrosse coach, she grew up here, she went to Mashpee, but she has a lot of connections with the Aces, and in turn is working with the Barnstable Youth Lacrosse just through the connections of the people that are working at Aces with her. And then our girls varsity soccer coach has been one of the middle school soccer coaches. And, part of the reason why we hired her is, she's a great coach talking to everybody, but she has connections to these kids. And I talked to her last week. She's saying these kids are so excited about playing. And we had 15 maybe JV girls soccer players last year, but we're potentially going to have a freshman team next year, right? We're going to potentially gain 15 to 20 athletes because of the coach that's there that has the connections to these kids, right? And as you said, if we can create these connections younger and earlier, they're going to continue to look up this. I ran the same offense at my school that I did from 7th grade through high school. And we ran a version of it when I did the rec team, right? Everything was connected. And I think we've been very deliberate in who we've hired for open positions, that's what they're doing, that they have a connection to a youth program or a sub-varsity program, a significant connection to the youth in this town that is going to make them excited to play for us.
Sharon, you had a question or comment?
Yes, Henry, I had just recently was, and you can say if it's accurate or not, but the girls program may have to be a co-op or, with another team. I know Tim is very involved in the youth program and he has, but I know personally, one of my niece's daughters is 10. She's already playing Falmouth girls.
Mhm.
And there's 5 girls from Barnstable already talking about school choice of going to Falmouth to play high school hockey. That's concerning. I haven't seen, my grandson plays, my granddaughter played. I haven't seen the girls coaches as involved as Tim Grace is. Is that something that maybe needs to be shook up, or can you get them involved in the youth and get a girls program? I mean, my daughter was on the first varsity Barnstable team back in the day, and there was so many girls, and I don't know where it kind of fell apart.
Yeah, so this was something that was I learned very quickly at the beginning of hockey season that this was something that people had kind of seen coming and been talking about. As I understand it, there was a break, partly because of COVID, between the ages of what they're doing. They're working on building the youth program back up. And I think hockey is a really tough sport because when students want to play or have an interest to play, if they haven't skated before or haven't skated a ton, they feel this hesitation, right? It's almost like doing a problem on the board in the front of math class. You're worried about, falling or slipping or whatever. But working on building the girls hockey program back up is something that we're doing. You are correct. We are going to have to do a co-op for right now where our numbers are. The purpose of a co-op is it's not an indefinite co-op, right? It happens in pockets of 2 years. So we would look at a co-op to rebuild this program. I spoke with Upper Cape Tech today. They have 4 skaters that are interested in playing with us. So that would allow us to run a varsity program. The last thing I would ever want to have happen is we can't run a program next year. Hockey is a core sport of this town. I know girls hockey was created, I don't know how many years ago, but it's it is
20.
one of those. Say again?
20.
Yeah, 20. I was thinking it was around 20, and so I think a co-op. I don't think a middle level waiver is going to work, right? I don't think a middle level waiver would work for this sport because too many of our 6th and 7th graders are tied up with either a private club team or they want it. But I think a co-op to help rebuild the program so that people can see that the program is still there is, I'm hopeful that in 2 or at worst case scenario 4 years, we have enough athletes playing Barnstable hockey that we don't have to do a co-op anymore. But the immediate solution, it actually just happened today. The immediate solution is a co-op with Upper Cape Tech, potentially Cape Cod Academy, just to get our numbers to be about 16 or 17, because we have 9, I think is the number that we have right now. But what I'm hoping is that if people see that we are still running hockey, whether it's a co-op or, just Barnstable, that they will choose not to, they won't choose to go to another school, right? So those girls that you were referencing already talking about going to Falmouth, right? If they see a Barnstable program that's not wearing a different uniform, right? They're wearing the Red Hawks uniform. They're wearing a Barnstable uniform, right? They're playing these games. They're playing in the HYCC, right? Those girls will see themselves in there. And I think Peter, our head coach, I've talked to him at great lengths about this, and he's always willing to step in. And if Peter isn't, if Peter decides to step away, because he has been doing it for a very long time, and I can tell you right now that the person that we would hire for the position would be similar qualifications that we hired for other positions. Connections to the youth program or willingness to create those connections, understands the town, understands the area, whether they played for us or, played in this program, understand this area and understand the world, because hockey, it can be an overwhelming sport for someone to try. But if we give them the resources, whether it's an open skate, we've talked about doing open skates in the fall. or we've talked about, doing equipment drives for those athletes that maybe can't afford the equipment. But we're really, as I said before, we're willing to try anything. And right now, the first step was finding a school to co-op with us, right? And even if it is, we might next year with a varsity program and a co-op, we might have 16 girls, right? But the next year, my hope is that it's 20.
Yeah.
And then over time, I'm hopeful that we can get back to having a JV, having a varsity. Girls hockey is one of those sports that the pandemic just decimated the numbers. It's probably the hardest hit sport that I've seen. That and maybe swimming. But hockey is the one where it is so reliant on the youth program. So reliant on the youth program. And I think, as you said, Tim has strong connections to the youth program. So he's known these kids for a long time. And I think, continuing to create those connections and, grow with those, I think that's really important for us. But the first step for us was getting someone to co-op with us so we can actually run the program. And the next is implementing the plan, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. So Henry, I love this collaboration and I am going to invite you, if your calendar permits. We're going on a road trip as a commission. We'll be on a bus. We'll have some time to talk about things from location to location. You'll get to see some of the things that are under the Recreation Commission, because I think that's important for members of Recreation to understand the scope of what we cover. And I love the dialogue that we've had tonight. So our next meeting will be on May the 6th, which is a Monday. We're meeting at HYCC. John is our VIP van chauffeur, and I'd love to kind of connect a little bit more with you to give you some ideas of recreation facilities, because this is what it's all about, the collaboration for our youth. So I hope your calendar permits. Any
Absolutely.
final questions before we?
I got one quick one, Renee.
Thank you.
I just want to say that Renee asked me for comment first because typically when we have athletic directors on, it's always the I like winning, and I think winning helps everybody get boost the numbers across the board, right? And sometimes, right, your predecessors, that's not really the case. But I like what I heard today. I understand for the programs, it's like girls hockey, you just need to find somebody, or you just need to build numbers up, right? And then after that, we can worry about starting to win. But I do like that that's where your head's at, especially with the Cape and Island League, right? Huge, massive, can't express that enough. One of the big things, and again, what you kind of hit on, just want to remember, again, we can't recruit, but the best football team that we have had in the last 20 years, out of the 5 captains, 1 was from Mashpee, 1 was from Yarmouth, and 1 was from Sandwich. So that's just something to consider. Ideally, I'm a massive Barnstable fan. Ideally, what I want it to be a place that people want to go to play sports, and you don't need to show up and watch. I don't know. I'll say it. You don't need to. I don't want to show up to a game and just watch Falmouth beat Barnstable ever, or realistically any Cape team. And I every year I tell Ross this every year. Love what he's doing with the football program. If he can beat King Philip, that'd be great. That's the monkey on our back at this point. Beating one of those, I don't want to say real teams, but one of those powerhouse. King Philip seems to be the one that we can't ever get over. But yeah, I just want to thank you for everything you said, and I'll let you go. Hey.
Well, no, thank you all for having me on. And I have a 2.5-year-old and a 5-month-old, right? I want them to be able to, come to Barnstable. I'm 7 feet, so I'm pretty sure my daughters are going to be 6'3" or 6'4". They're both. My 2.5-year-old looks like a 4-year-old. So looking at the future, I want them to have a program where they're coming to games with me, and they can see those kids. And I do think we're really lucky where our athletes are great role models, right? I have conversations with them, and we took a pocket of athletes last week to Monomoy to go through an MI leadership conference, and just seeing them interact with everybody, seeing them interact with the people that were running it, I was really proud to be a part of this school, and seeing the way that our athletes handle themselves after games, whether it's a tough loss or it was a close win and the other team is, really, struggling with the way that our athletes, I think, carry themselves. That's something that our programs can look up to, our youth can look up to, and they idolize. And I don't know if I realized it when I was an athlete in high school, but when I would interact with kids 10 years after, I worked the basketball camp, to hear them talk about the way they viewed me. And I was 175 pounds, 6'10" in high school, right? I was not a very good basketball player, but they're like, you're Andrew Stevens, you played at Lansing, and they had this view of who I was. And I was really, I felt this sense of pride to have that effect on them in their growth. But I think that we can continue to do that together. And I really appreciate, the invitation. I assume it's at 5:30 on
So
Monday.
it's going to be at 5 because we're going to get in a
Okay.
van, and we're going out to the actual facilities. But I'd love to have some of this kind of collaboration
Absolutely.
amongst us, and I hope that you can join us. If not, we will definitely reconnect with you again. Any final questions? This was really great, and welcome to our town and to your new role.
Thanks, Henry.
I think
Yes, Jeffrey.
Just one thing that I forgot to mention is what we've lost in the past 15 to 20 years is tradition. When I was playing in high school, the day before Thanksgiving, there used to be a parade, which they still have, but the difference is when I was younger and playing, Main Street was packed. They took away the dance the night before the football game. They took away the burning of the shoe. So tradition is very important, because with tradition comes connection. With connection comes care. And if you don't have those elements, you don't get community support. So what's happened, and I know this is no fault of yours, you're the new guy. But what's happened with previous administrations is they've taken tradition out. So they've lost the community. I mean, my senior year of high school, it was a rainy day. It was probably 30 degrees out, mud, but there was 6,000 people in the stands.
Yep.
So I think that's something that we have to really think about doing, is instituting some tradition again, or bringing back tradition.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I'm sorry if I'm taking up everybody's time, but I keep on thinking of things because you're asking such great questions and making such great comments. But one thing that we are going to do next year is homecoming is going to look differently. It's going to be a 3-day event, Thursday through Saturday. And the way I've done it and the way that we're planning it is every single team, freshman, JV, and varsity, is going to have a home game. I did something similar when I was at my private school, where we had food trucks, and I ended up running the grill most of the day. But the way that I see it is it's really locked into the community, and everybody in the community is going to have an opportunity that Saturday or that Friday night, football against New Bedford. The only teams that I couldn't get home games for were freshman and JV football, because talk about traditions, if varsity's hosting, freshmen and JV go to that school. And I tried to convince New Bedford to come to us, but there's no avail. But we are planning on having, I want to see this in the future of, like, this is homecoming weekend. This is Barnstable's homecoming weekend. Let's go and let's spend the weekend watching these athletes and having, whether it's a community fair or any sort of thing that kids and families can participate in and see these athletes, whether it's their neighbors or students that they've seen or grow up, whether it's former teachers. And I have the skeleton of it, right? I have the schedule kind of laid out. It's just putting in place of, a pep rally on Thursday, kicking off with 3 or 4 games, and then obviously football on Friday night, and then Saturday just kind of jam-packed with events that everybody in the community can be a part of. And so working with people like you and the booster clubs, they've been on board, and just, creating something that's going to have these traditions and this excitement about what our local athletes are doing.
So Henry, we want those dates, we want those times right now, so we as a Recreation Commission can get ready to support bringing back some of that.
The 19th,
Standard.
19th through the 21st, right? So
All right, listening audience, did you hear that?
and
19.
I think 19th is the Thursday. So 19th is going to be hopefully the pep rally, and then we're going to have I've already talked to Tom Turco. He's going to host his volleyball. He has a volleyball game that day, so we're going to kick it off. Have one or two other games, but Saturday is the big day where we're going to have cross country races. We're going to have soccer games, field hockey games. Football's obviously going to be New Bedford on Friday night, but I have people see, and when I've told coaches if they're talking to opponents, I said, like, pick an opponent for this day, and we've I think most people have their opponents for those days, and once we have that, I'll be able to kind of push out a schedule, and then whether it's talk to local community members that are willing to cook, or food trucks or anything like that we can have out there, doing these things that the community can build around. When I did this, we called it Mariner Day. And I thought, all right, we'll have 100 people. We have 500 people throughout the day. And it's because teams that were playing in the morning were staying through the day, right? Because they just were enjoying themselves. I don't know if it's because the food was free, but they were enjoying themselves all day. And I got there at 6 in the morning, and I left at 6:30 or 7, and I got home, and my wife asked me how it went, and I was like, it was amazing, right? It just was, and we had a perfect day too, but it just was really great to see a community that was pretty widespread. We had kids from Marion, Martha's Vineyard, but people were coming, and it was probably about 500 people throughout the day. And so, we're obviously a bigger school. We have more programs. I imagine we'll have more people, but that's something that we're looking at, and creating this because homecoming was a huge event when I was in high school. Everything shut down. We had Spirit Week and everything else, and I think if we can kind of emulate that, that's something that I'd like to do.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
everyone.
All righty, we are so glad that you joined us. We're gonna thank you for joining us. We're gonna move right into John's
Thank you, everyone.
report. You'll take care. John, I'd like you to do your best. Land the plane. If we're over just a little bit, that's okay. Mine is very quick, my updates. So John, take it away.
All right, let me see if I can share my screen here to find the presentation. Can everyone see the screen? Yeah. Well, it's great to have Henry on. Speaking of connecting with youth to the high school level, we met with Mark Barrett, the former youth wrestling coach, for our rec programs. So we're trying to get back to run a 4th through 7th grade wrestling program to get more wrestlers up to the high school, because currently anyone interested in wrestling has to go off Cape to do that. So we're going to try to bring that back. Again, build up the high school program. This past month, we met with the Osville Playground Advisory Group, and we met on site, which was really important for the group to do, to see the layout of the future playground, to see the size of what it will be, and see some renderings. And so that playground advisory group is progressing, which we have another meeting coming up in the near future. During the past month, met with different user groups that use our fields, and booked all their lights. So if I haven't talked about this in the past, at McKeon Field and Lombard Field, we have Musco lighting system. And every year I have to turn that on and activate it. And then through their control link, I can set up all games for the whole year. They come on at sunset, they go off at a certain time. It's really easy for me to do. I give the user groups permission to turn the lights on early or turn them off early if they finish the night early, and it gives them some flexibility with their games at night. So that's been taken care of for all the user groups this spring. Recently attended the JFK Memorial Trust Fund Committee meeting, where we always seek funds to improve our sailing program. We were successful in getting the funds we needed for that, and for the purchase of the JFK Memorial hats that we always get every year and sell down at the memorial. Last but not least, in the administrative part area, we recently attended the Mass Park and Rec Association Conference, and we were awarded the Cape and Islands Community Impact Award. So they started that 3 years ago. We won it the first initial year, and we won it again this year. So we're 2 for 3 so far with that award. Going into aquatics, again, I think I've said it every meeting since December. Parking permits are on sale. You can get them through the mail or online. We are pretty current and up to date with the sales of those permits. And people can grab applications online. They can grab them in our building. They can apply online, whatever they find easiest to do. And we'd appreciate, people doing that, now while the weather is still not the best. So they're ready to go Memorial Day weekend when the beach is open on the weekends. We have lifeguard trials coming up April 27th, May 11th, and June 1st. We're currently taking applications. We are doing okay with applications, not great. As you guys know, trying to recruit and get lifeguards is very challenging since COVID, and we're doing our best to try to get kids involved with that. I just found out today there was 10 high school students that signed up for the class that we're going to run next year at the high school, where the kids will get PE credit, and then a part of that will become certified lifeguards. So we have 10 with the potential of getting more. So that's a very positive to hear that. So I'll continue to work with the school to make sure that's finalized for next year. But I thought you guys would want to know that for tonight. We have met with other town officials just to make sure we're all set as far as parking permits and enforcement of parking lots and ways to water. I met with parking management, and we all seem to be on the right page of what they're going to be doing for this season. We met with Yoga Neighborhood, who provide yoga lessons at the beach. We discussed what the plan is for the summer and all the programs. Everything looked good on both ends, so that will be going into our summer brochure, and we're excited about that. We have registration for summer programs starting May 8th, and the booklet should be ready by mid-month of this month. Last but not least, in the aquatic world, we met with a new person that's interested in doing a beach boot camp workout this summer at Craigville Beach, where this person will initially become our employee, but eventually maybe becoming a vendor and having her own business and running it on the side, but doing some boot camp workouts this summer at the beach for anyone interested in getting a nice workout early in the morning. The highlight of tonight, I really want to talk about some of our new recreation programs that we did recently. Jack Kapanke is a program coordinator for us who grew up in our programs, played flag football, basketball. When I was a program coordinator, he was in my programs. He's been a great addition to our staff. And back-to-back last Friday and Saturday, he ran some great programs. We did a dodgeball tournament for the first time ever with the 4th and 5th graders. We had 15 teams, 90 kids. It was a double elimination tournament. It was phenomenal. I showed up, I think just after the first or second game and stayed to the end and helped Jack out and manage teams and the play, and it was just so fun to watch all the kids excited. There were a couple girls teams, a ton of boys teams, and it was just fun to see all the kids get together after school. We pulled the bleachers out, parents came and watched, cheered everyone on, and I did a post last week on Facebook and Instagram, and filmed the last game and posted that, and you can see some pictures up there on that. It was a great day. He followed that up on Saturday, the next day, with a new program called Survival Day. Basically, it's a knockoff of Survivor, where we didn't eliminate
Love it.
we didn't eliminate kids. We weren't ruthless, but they formed, two teams in the morning, and they worked together on all sorts of challenges, and they earned points. And then after the challenge, they could vote on what teammate they wanted to give an extra point to. So the kids racked up points and had necklaces, and there was immunities, and they could go around the building and find idols and stuff like that. It was just such a great day, and Jack did a phenomenal job. A bunch of the full-time staff poked their heads in the gym and were watching the events as they transpired. And then in the afternoon, the kids formed, they were more individual challenges, but you could see them like talking and forming alliances and helping each other out. It was a great time. And I think going forward on Good Friday, that is definitely going to become our new survival day, where we'll do this sort of all day event in the kids. And they were there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they were there till 4:30 in the afternoon. And like, they were not bored. They were engaged the whole time. They had a blast. We fed them pizza. It was a great day. We'll have pictures up shortly of that, but Jack did an amazing job with that. And then we have a new program too. I don't know if I mentioned it last time. It's called Club 13. Jackie Keeney, a program coordinator, came up with that. Basically, it's a 13-week program, all centered around Taylor Swift. So Club 13, because Taylor Swift's favorite number is 13 weeks.
Love it.
That was sold out. We filled up, and that started last week. And just, it's nice to see the staff coming into their own. We have a lot of new staff coming into their own, taking traditions of the past and keeping those going forward, but finding their own path and new things that progress us to be better as a whole. So it was really good to see that. I went to Newsies on Friday night, and so did the Friday Night Social. So it was good to see the Friday Night Social enjoy the high school play. The students at the high school did a great job. It was a great performance. And usually the Friday Night Social will go to one of those plays every year. We have our summer leisure program coming up, registration coming up April 10th. So we have registration packets available online. We have packets available at the HYCC for people to get that prepared for registration. Registration begins at 8:45 in the morning, in person and online. So I encourage anyone doing it online that they go into their online accounts. They make sure they know their username and password. They can check their children to make sure that they're in the appropriate grade levels. So when they register online, there's no hiccups on their part to register their child for that. And along with that, the leisure program is looking for counselors for the summer. So anyone that has a child or a grandchild or a neighbor that is 16 years or older, applications are online. Would encourage anyone interested in that to apply online. Last but not least, I don't think the Youth Commission is on tonight, but Piper Hunt and Lake O'Reilly were selected to be on the governor's first youth council. So a very prestigious honor for Piper and Lake. They've been members of the commission for a long time, and it was good to see them get that recognition. And hopefully, I believe they're both seniors, so in their short time that they have left of the year, that they'll contribute to the group before they head off to college. And last but not least, upcoming events for the Youth Commission. They have the Youth Summit, which is for 7th graders, which they go over to the Barnstable Adult Community Center, and they have stuff on the school premises as well. Will they learn about what it's going to look like heading up to the high school, and some of the temptations and peer pressure type things that they can encounter, or maybe already encounter in the middle school, but will definitely encounter up at the high school. So we'll give them a little prepared for that. And then the One Love training, which is about unhealthy and healthy relationship information. And we'll be doing that for the senior class this year, I believe, coming up later on this school year. So it was great really to hear Henry. I think he came on in the middle of the fall season. And it was great to hear from him, and have gotten to know him a little bit, but definitely look forward to working with him in the future. If anyone has any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
So what I'd like to do first is I'd like everyone on the commission to please take yourself out off of mute so we can give a round of applause to John and his team for the Community Impact Award. Well done.
Nice
Thank
job.
you. Yeah, it was nice to get that award. Obviously, speaking of tradition, we have great tradition here in Barnstable for the Recreation Division. You know, Patty Machado is a legend in the field, and it was nice for myself and our team to be recognized for the work that we've accomplished. Because you know, we learned from the best in the past, and we're taking the things that we've learned from the past and we're implementing new stuff and making our own path. And it was nice to be recognized. So it was very nice.
Well deserved. Any other questions for John from the commissioners? All righty, we are moving a little bit over time, so I'll make the next two items quick. John, do you want me to try to share? Let me see if I can do it without much
Yeah,
disturbance. Okay, I have it.
yeah.
So let's see, I'm able to share. Can everyone see the Sandy Neck hike events?
Yep, all set, Renee. Thank you.
All righty, so what I wanted to just briefly share with everyone as the representative to from the rec to the Sandy Neck board. I've grown to love this assignment. Our next meeting will be next Monday, and it meets in person at the town, and the meeting start at 7. But there's some really cool things that are coming up Sandy Neck I wanted to share with you. So you can see that this Saturday, April 6th, there will be a spring beach cleanup. On the 16th, there will be Signs of Spring, which is a really nice walk. And the David Shapiro does a really awesome job of taking people about this magnificent site. And in this part of the discussion, he'll be looking at the return of the ospreys. The April the 18th, there is a 101 for women. Their first time bringing their vehicles on the beach, and you can count me in. I'm going with my Subaru Forester. I cannot wait. But that's open to women on that day. There's another event in May and in June, but I'll leave those for another discussion. Those are the 3 April events being held over at the Sandy Neck location. Any questions? Okay, we're gonna move into one new item very quickly, and it is something that I sent to everyone just before the meeting, but I thought I would take the opportunity tonight. The local comprehensive planning committee is coming to villages across the town of Barnstable. In the village of Barnstable on April 2nd at 6 o'clock, it will be held at St. Mary's Episcopal Church. On April the 3rd in the town of Catuit, it will be held at their Freedom Hall. On April the 9th at 6 p.m., it will be held for the town of Centerville at the Fire District Centerville headquarters. On April the 10th for the community of Marston's Mills, it will be held on April 10th at 6 p.m. at the Liberty Hall. On April the 24th at 6 p.m. for the town of Osterville be held at the Osterville Public Library. The West Barnstable Village will have their event on Monday, April the 29th at 6 p.m. And in Hyannis, the village will have its meeting on April the 30th, held at our very own Barnstable Adult Center location. So please, each of the commissioners, consider attending one of these in your town and spreading the word. Any questions here? Okay, so I will stop sharing. Do we have any other announcements before we wrap up our April meeting?
Just one thing, Renee, I think I had mentioned to you before, I got contacted by the Cape Cod Roller Derby.
Yes,
Club,
yes, yes.
I
So,
just-
yeah, so John and I are going to fit them into one of our upcoming meetings. As you can see, we had a really lively and informative discussion tonight. I try to keep it to about one visitor so we can start and end on time, but we have that. Thank you, Tim, for passing that information on. Our next meeting, before we close, is on Monday, May the 6th. It is an in-person meeting and we'll start it a little earlier, 5 o'clock instead of 5:30, and we will be meeting at the HYCC. And Brendan, I'll coordinate with you so you can catch up with us, and we will send out our locations that we will visit. Any other questions before I
Thank you, Renee.
ask for a motion to close tonight? All righty, a motion to adjourn. May I have a motion?
So moved.
All righty, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well,
Aye.
everyone, thank you so much. We're over by about 15 minutes. My apologies, but I think that that was a very informative session, and I hope that Henry and the commission can work together in the future. So if everyone, good night. Our meeting is officially over.